हेलो फ्रेंड्स, वेलकम टू माय चैनल इग्नो सेंटर। तो दोस्तों, हमने आगे ही आपसे क्वेश्चन नंबर 1, क्वेश्चन नंबर 2 और क्वेश्चन नंबर 3 डिस्कस कर लिया था। और ये जो क्वेश्चंस रहेगा हमारा MA01 ब्रिटिश पोइट्री का जो है 2022 to 23 सेशन का सॉल्व असाइनमेंट का था। और दोस्तों, हम आपसे एक रिक्वेस्ट करना चाहते हैं कि अगर आप हमारे चैनल के साथ नए जुड़े हैं तो चैनल को ज़रूर सब्सक्राइब कर दीजिएगा। और आपको एक डिस्क्रिप्शन बॉक्स में जर्नी बडी नाम का चैनल मिलेगा। तो दोस्तों, वो हमारा दूसरा चैनल है जहाँ पर हम अपना जो व्लॉग से रिलेटेड वीडियो है वो अपलोड करते हैं। तो दोस्तों, उसको भी ज़रूर सब्सक्राइब कर लीजिएगा। और आज हम जो क्वेश्चन डील करेंगे वो होगा आपका क्वेश्चन नंबर 4। और क्वेश्चन नंबर 4 हम ये क्वेश्चंस में दिखा दें कि क्वेश्चन नंबर 4 क्या है। तो आप जिसे देख पा रहे होंगे, क्वेश्चन नंबर 4 है, व्हाट एटीट्यूड टू नेचर डज कोलेरिज एक्सप्रेस इन द ओड टू डिजेक्शन, इन व्हाट वेज does this attitude differ from that of Wordsworth and from his own earlier attitude। और दोस्तों, इसका आंसर है हमारा ये सॉल्व PDF में। तो हम आपको क्वेश्चन नंबर 4 आज जो है वो करके दिखाएंगे। और आशा करते हैं कि आपको हमारे वीडियो से हेल्प मिल रहा होगा। तो दोस्तों, ये तो क्वेश्चन था, अभी हमने आपको बोला था कि क्वेश्चन है हमारा क्वेश्चन नंबर 4। और क्वेश्चन है, what attitude to nature does Coleridge express in the Ode to Dejection? In what ways does this attitude differ from that of Wordsworth and from his own earlier attitude? And the answer for this question is, in this poem, Coleridge looks at the nature as last hope. He wants a storm to come in his life to arouse him from the spiritual slumber he is now in, so that he can write poetry. The poet seemed to be a complete wreck more because of his idea of nature, that nature does not have any distinctive identity. She is not a positive force. The identity of nature depends on us. If we are happy, we sense happiness all over in nature and vice versa. Wordsworth did not agree with this theory. For him, nature is a complete individual and possesses a distinctive identity. Much of the reputation of Coleridge today is a critic rather than a poet. For the first time in the history of English literature, Coleridge provides the solid theories of literary criticism in his Biographia Literaria. Though the starting of Coleridge as a critic was from the preface to the lyrical ballad in 1800. After that he went on to analyze and examine Wordsworth's poetry and provide a deep insight in the poem of Wordsworth. To quote Casamin, certain intention as well as certain success or falling of Wordsworth are catched and illuminated to their depth. So searching is the light that it is even cruel. Though there is no heeding of the fact that he has romantic sensibility, but still in his criticism he tries to remain unprejudiced and very objective. Great critics like T.S. Eliot draw heavily from Coleridge's viewpoint and stand. It is the objective of Coleridge that lead him to the depth of the any kind of art and allows him to discover the meaning that is hidden therein. Cajamian, regarding his Shakespearean criticism, says his remarks on Shakespeare show a sound intuition of the profound unity of dramatic art. Coleridge's imaginative perception is very strong, and perhaps that is why his famous dramatic connection between fancy and imagination, despite of mystic in nature, is very realistic and convincing. Coleridge the poet was heavily fascinated and influenced by the German metaphysics, and this made him Coleridge the philosopher. This was the beginning of a critic, or better say, almost perfect critic, who was the result of amalgamation of both poet and philosopher. Coleridge lived in an age when the things were changing, the life, the viewpoint about the world and other things, and also the nature and structure of society. The effect of all these changes were inevitable on Coleridge as a poet, because every great right is directly or indirectly affected by the life and the thought of the people of the age. While understanding the whole concept, we can assume Renaissance as the epicenter of the all these changes. It was time of questioning self-awareness and raising the voice against the tyranny of state and church. The potential of human mind was being realized. Great intellectuals like Isaac Newton and Locke were seen as new ideals of knowledge. The emergence and development of new science and philosophy of reason led to various developments. Industrial revolution assured people of upcoming prosperity and comfort, but things which were turning out bad, real bad, were ignored, along with the voice like of Blake and Gray, who tried to speak against it. But then came the time when there was a sense of freedom. In Wordsworth, this sense takes us towards the exploration of nature, while in Coleridge, this sense asks us to explore the mysterious and enigmatic zone of spiritual, supernatural. Literary figures like Byron and Shelley demanded for the new social order based on intellectual freedom, science, reasoning, and unprejudiced political system. Another important factor that helped in shaping of mind of English poet of the age was French Revolution. The French Revolution played a huge role in influencing English writers. As the revolution began to play out, the absolute monarchy that had ruled France for centuries collapsed in only a few years. This resulted in a complete transformation of society. A majority of the population was greatly in favor of this, as the working class had been suffering oppression for many years. Albert Hancock is in his book The French Revolution and the English Poets, a study in historical criticism, writes the French Revolution came bringing with it the promises of a brighter day, the promises of regeneration, man and regenerated earth. It was held with joy and acclamation by the oppressed, by the ardent lovers of humanity, by the poets whose task is to voice the human spirit. A common theme among some of the most widely known romantic poets is their acceptance and approval of the French Revolution. William Wordsworth, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, Lord Byron, and Percy Shelley all share the same view of the French Revolution, as it began the beginning of a change in the current phase of society and helping to better the life of the oppressed. As the French Revolution changed the lives of virtually everyone in the nation and even continent, because of its drastic and immediate shift in social reformation. It greatly influenced many writers at the time. Hancock writes, I here is no need to recount here in detail how the French Revolution at the close of the last century was the great stimulus to the intellectual and emotional life of the civilized world, how it began by inspiring all liberty loving men with hope and joy. Literature began to take a new turn when the spirit of the revolution catch the entire nation and turned things in a whole new direction. The newly acquired freedom of the common people did not only bring about just laws and living, but ordinary people also had the freedom to think for themselves, and in turn the freedom to express themselves trickled out. Mm, Please wait, I'll just forget where I am. So, the newly acquired freedom of common people did not only bring about just law and living, but ordinary people also had the freedom to think for themselves and in turn the freedom to express themselves. Triggered by the revolutionary spirit, the writers of the time were full of creative ideas and were waiting for a chance to unleash them. Under the new laws, writers and artists were given a considerable amount of freedom to express themselves, which did well to pave the way to set a high standard for literature. The influence of various other social and political events was great on the writers of this age. Coleridge was also instantly influenced by various other intellectuals in Europe. His greatest intellectual debates were first to William Godwin's political justice, especially during his Pence isocratic period, and to David Hartley observation on man, which is the source of the psychology which we find in Frost at Midnight. Hartley argued that we become aware of sensory events as impressions and that ideas are derived by noticing similarities and differences between impressions and then by naming them. Connection resulting from the consonance of impressions creates linkage so that the occurrence of one impression triggers those links and calls up the memory of those ideas with which it is associated. But far more important than native British influence was his trip to Germany in 1798 to 99, where he encountered the work of Kant, Schindler, Lessing, Schilling, and A.W. Schlegel. Many of the points made in his literatures on Shakespeare first appear in the work of Lessing and Schlegel, and the important chapter 13 of the Biographia Literaria is substantially indebted to Kant, Fichte, and especially Schilling, whom he has been accused of plagiarizing. In any case, Coleridge is the point of contact between the English and continental Romantic movement. He produced three poems of matchless merit: Kubla Khan, The Rime of Ancient Marine, and Christabel all these three poems are considerable to be his greatest achievement as a poet. So friends, till here we have completed question number 4, and we have left with question number 5, and I thought question number 6. So we will deal with this in our next video. So this was the part 3 of our video, and again want you all to request that please subscribe to my channel Journey Buddy, so that I'll get more courage and more motivation to make videos for you all, as this was all by myself, and make video for you all take a long time, and I want you all to help me by subscribing to my channel Journey Buddy and this channel too. Thank you.